You're listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we're tuning into a session from the ABA archive with the final part of our strategic planning series, Branding and Promotion, presented virtually in April of 2022.
So now I have the privilege of introducing you to Leslie Rice. For those of you who are not here for our last session, Leslie is the lead strategist of Rice Education Consulting, which is based in Cincinnati, Ohio. With over 20 years of marketing and PR experience for organizations and brands such as Bounty, Charmin, Pampers, and the My Black is Beautiful program, she is a knowledgeable brand builder. Her work as a tenured marketing professor at Cincinnati State and lead strategist at Redcon and marketing and selling facilitator for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Programs helps her build brands and challenge the status quo. So Leslie, thank you again for joining us for these sessions, and take it away.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session. So as Lisa mentioned, this is the third session of what we've been doing. So starting with building a strategic plan for your store, to then looking at your marketing strategy and how you're bringing that growth opportunity from your strategic plan to life. And so now we're going to round this out with branding strategy. But before we get into that, I want to know who's in the room and why you're here, as has been customary for all of the sessions. So go ahead and drop that in the chat. Let me know where you're from and why are you here today for the branding strategy session. All right, welcome. Montana's in the building. All right. Hello, Iowa and St. Louis. Okay, South Bend, yes, keeping up with brand voice. Got some of the West represented. Wonderful. Okay. All right. So we got a good sampling from all over the country. So that's great to see. So go ahead and keep them coming, and we'll go ahead and jump into the tools for success. So please make sure you have something to write with. There will be some worksheets that come at the end of the session. Or toward the end of the session, I should say, but please make sure that you have something to write with. There will be moments where I'll ask you to brainstorm some things or think about something in the context of your store and how you do business. So it's imperative that you'll have something to write with. All right. And then just as a quick recap, so those of you that were not with us or have not been with us for all three sessions, we started with looking at the focus areas for creating a strategic plan. So if you take a look at the chart that's on the screen right now, we spent some time going through all 6 of these focus areas and showing how looking at each of these areas will help you identify growth opportunities. So identifying some gaps, some strengths, some weaknesses in how you do business so that you can find a way that you want to grow and move forward. Okay. So we started looking here. Then we moved on to the actual work of it. So how you capture those things. And these worksheets are available for you. So they're available along with the recorded session from this strategic plan workshop. Okay, so I see some people are doing double duty, and that is perfectly okay today. But these worksheets here are the SWOT analysis, where you're taking a look at your internal and external opportunities and some weaknesses happening there. Also looking at what do you have going on internally where you're working really well and very strong so you can build on those. Creating a customer profile. So this was kind of a segue from the strategic plan workshop to the last workshop, where we identified who is our customer, what do we know about them? And then we looked at some competitive branding from that. So what are your points of difference and your points of parity or similarity with the competitors? Okay, so these worksheets are there, and I do recommend that you take some time to do these 3 first, okay, if you haven't already. Then we moved into another more in-depth focus on what's happening within our store. So we talked about the 7 Ps, and I will refresh today because that connects to your brand identity. But we looked at the 7 Ps. So your product, your price, place, meaning how do you deliver the products? Promotion, how do you talk about the products? The people, your employees, the processes that you use, also the physical environment. What does it look like and feel like when someone enters into your business? Then we looked at that from a value proposition standpoint. What is it that you are doing for the customer? How are you doing that uniquely? What solutions are you providing? And then how do you make sure your processes are set up to be able to deliver on that? Okay, so that is a very quick review of the worksheets and the training and the sessions that have already been available to you. Okay, so getting into our goals for this session, we're going to talk about the PI model for brand development. We're going to also discuss the key attributes of a strong brand, and we're going to start to develop some of the elements of your brand story. So how do we bring that to life? All right. All of this matches up or ladders up to become your customer experience. We want them to have an experience with us before they enter the store, once they're in the store, and after they leave. We want all of that to be positive for our customers because that's what keeps them coming back. All of those things come together to create your brand identity. So how do we give the customer a memorable, positive experience? We have some control over that. Okay. And so that's what today's session is going to focus on. So quick review. I covered this in the marketing strategy session, but what is a brand? A brand is a unique combination of design, symbols, and words. So anything that helps people identify you and your business. With those things come together to create an image. And then that image identifies and differentiates you. So there's something forming in the customer's mind, and you hope that is going to be something positive. Okay. And then that separates you from your competitors. And so branding is a very important aspect of how you do business. Many people do the same thing that you do, but you all have your own little way of doing it. You have your own processes. You may share some similarities in that, but everyone brings a unique personality to book selling and in the business that we're operating in. Okay, so I'll pause there just to give you a minute to process what is a brand and why is it important that we create the identity that's going to be positive and that's going to connect with the consumer. All right. Any questions right now? I know this is pretty top level. We're not getting into it just yet, but we will soon enough. So any questions? All right. So I'm going to show a video and I am not going to play the sound because it can be a little rough in how it comes through, but I'll narrate some parts of it as we go through. All right. So I want you to watch this video and observe what's happening as it progresses. Okay. And then we will talk about it. All right. So this is a busy subway station in Washington, D.C. On the left of your screen, there is a gentleman playing a violin. And so we'll just observe what's happening here. Okay, and this is just a sped up version of the video just to show how much time has elapsed and how much interaction this gentleman is getting from people walking through this busy subway station. Okay, so he's here most of the day. Still going on, and then you will eventually see where someone stops and engages him in conversation. And the person that engages him in conversation says that she has just went to his show not long ago where he sold out the symphony hall. All right. So you get the picture of what's happening here. So I'm going to stop it there. And we're just going to talk about what was going on. So in the chat, what did you observe? What's happening there? And drop it in the chat. What did you observe? You have no idea who they were. Josh Bell. Okay. No one knew who the performer was. Okay, and so we have some fans, all right? Many people walking by without engaging. Very few people noticed that a world-renowned violinist was playing. He was largely ignored, okay? So it's good to see that some of you are familiar with Joshua Bell, but at the time, Joshua Bell was a 39-year-old internationally acclaimed virtuoso, a former child prodigy, and had recently filled the house at Boston's Stately Symphony Hall with an average ticket price of $100. And this was several years ago, so I'm sure he's commanding a much higher dollar figure there. What is the lesson in this? Why do I show you this from the context of branding? Is anyone getting the connection here? Why or how do you think this relates to branding? And then I'll pose it in the form of a question here. If a great musician plays great music, but no one hears, was he really any good? Okay, thank you, Miriam. Context can set our expectations. How many times do we walk past things and not even recognize them or not give it more than a second glance? We do this all the time. Why? Because we are inundated with messages. We're inundated with different people trying to get our attention. And so we selectively crop out things that don't fit. And so, yes, Joshua Bell, critically acclaimed virtuoso, but no one's paying attention. It doesn't mean he's not a great musician. That's just not his audience. Okay. We have to make sure we put context around the things that we do. Otherwise, people are not going to pay attention. And so when we think of it from the standpoint of branding, understanding who this person was, branding requires that you create a story and you put that story in front of the people that are going to care, that are going to share, and that are going to find a connection to it. Okay. And that is the most important aspect of branding to remember and consider. Okay. So I also like to show this clip from The Incredibles to drive home this point of that I'm making, that in a world where everyone's super, how do you stand out? Okay.
The ship's unique design suggests
Huh? Oh, come on. You gotta admit this is cool. Just like a movie. The robot will emerge dramatically, do some damage, throw some screaming people, and just when all hope is lost, Syndrome will save the day. I'll be a bigger hero than you ever were.
You mean you killed off real heroes so that you could pretend to be one?
Oh, I'm real. Real enough to defeat you. And I did it without your precious gifts, your oh-so-special powers. I'll give them heroics. I'll give them the most spectacular heroics anyone's ever seen. And when I'm old and I've had my fun, I'll sell my inventions so that everyone can be superheroes. Everyone can be super. And when everyone's super, no one will be.
All right. So that last line is very important. In a world where everyone is super, no one will be. Okay, thank you, Scott. So you can be a virtuoso, but if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, there are significant yet avoidable obstacles to success. Absolutely. And that's why in the last session, we spent so much time understanding who our customer was so that everything we put out and everything that we promote can be directed to them. Okay. And so continuing on with this question, in a world where everyone is super, how do you stand out? We stand out in these ways. So our advocacy and visibility, our reputation and our style, our results and skills. We look at this as performance, or what is it that you uniquely deliver in this space that other people don't or don't do on the level of you. So all of these things have to be true as we're trying to have success in a world where everyone is super. Okay. And so I like to put this into a nice, memorable acronym of PIE. Okay. So it has absolutely nothing to do with the food and everything to do with the P, the I, and the E. So what we're going to do now is go through those elements that help you create a positive brand identity. We're going to talk about how those things go together. We're going to talk about characteristics of what every strong brand does. And then we are going to start to put together the elements of your brand story. Okay. All right. So what do you think the P stands for? Anyone have any guesses on what the P is that helps us stand out? What is the P in PIE? Any guesses? Personality. That's not the P, but presentation, those kind of wrap up into it. Your product is also a part of it, but that is not the P overall, but all of those things. Okay, positive. I like it. I like it. You all are coming up with lots of things that are very important to the P. People promotion. I know I've been throwing P's at you every session. All right. But the P I'm referring to is performance, and all the things that have been said in the chat, from product to positive to people to promotion to personality to presentation. Those things are somewhat wrapped up into your performance. Okay. So the performance P. Okay. I, any ideas on what the I is? How does one stand out? What is the I? And someone alluded to it with one of their P's. So what do you think the I is? Any guesses? Okay, interactions. Okay, they have something to do with it. You're right. Individuality. All right. Ingenuity. I love all those things. And I hope that you all are keeping those in mind as you look at what you want your brand to be, because those are great descriptors of strong brands. But the I is image. Okay, so performance, image. Okay, so that's the P and the I. Any guesses on the E? What do we need to make sure that the P and the I can be amplified? Okay, I like engagement. That's not quite there. I like excellence too. That goes toward the I. Okay, execution, we got to do it correct, but that's not what I'm looking for with the E. You're right, Joanne, we got a winner. Exposure. All right, so the PIE, performance, image, and exposure. All right, and I'm going to break those down. Okay, so when we look at our performance, it's our skills and abilities, the outcomes, the value-added processes. What is the quality of outcome that you deliver? So the customer can go lots of places for books. They can go lots of places for sidelines and other gifts and other things that you sell. But what is that quality that you deliver? How do your processes aid in that? How do you make sure that they are not just satisfied with their purchase, but they are extremely satisfied? Okay. How do we ensure that what we're delivering to them is outstanding? The image, it's your identity. How do you stand out? Who are you? What is your personality? What's your credibility, your reputation and influence, how other people perceive you? Okay. So the image, sometimes it's part of it is in your hands, but a large part of it is not in your hands because the image factors in how other people see you. Now, you can play a role in how they see you, but for the most part, they are going out of your store and telling people something about you. And we definitely want it to be positive. And when we think about exposure, these are the network circles that you're in. Who knows you? What do you have access to? Who has access to you? The exposure is the catalyst for both image and performance because you can be the best. You can have the most amazing performance and an extremely positive image for anyone that's interacted with you. But if you don't have that exposure piece, then you're not going to be able to amplify that performance and image in a way that's going to help you leverage it. to grow your business, to increase your sales, to get better or expand your reach. Okay. So I'm going to pause there and just see if there are any questions on PIE. So performance, image, and exposure, before we start talking about how these things might come to life and how we can pile these up to be a strong and positive brand. Any questions? All right. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Which of these three areas is your strongest asset? So is it performance? Is it image? Or is it exposure? Which of these three areas is your business's strongest asset? Okay. All right. Jennifer and Kathy, I have image. I hope it is a positive one. Okay. Got it. Performance. Absolutely. Making sure that image is positive for the consumers that you want to reach. Okay. So keeping in mind, we might have a very positive image and we might really like our brand, but we have to make sure that it comes across in that way, in a positive way to those that we're trying to reach. All right. Is there anyone that feels exposure is their strongest asset? So I see lots of performance and image. And I will say those are your tickets to entry. If you do not have strong performance and solid outcomes for your customers and making sure that image is positive, then the exposure doesn't matter one bit. Okay. So it's good that this is the focus of many of your businesses. Okay. And so I would assume that some of you want to improve your exposure because I don't see many people talking about their exposure. And let's talk about this. What do you need to get more exposure? What are some of the things that you feel that you need to assist with overcoming whichever area is not the strongest? Can go ahead and drop it in the chat. Local press, absolutely. What else do we need to overcome this? Exposure, or if you said performance was the strongest and the image is not one of your strongest. Time, consistency, and other resources. I like that time and consistency. We don't build a brand overnight, okay? So making sure that it's built on that consistent, that sustainable way that we go about our business. Okay, we hired consultants to assist with several things related to exposure. I love that. Sometimes we just need help. Networking, absolutely. It is a hard skill to develop. And I'm not sure how big your team is, but maybe there are some extroverted folks on your team that really would that want to be in that circle. How do you invite people in? Okay, I know sometimes as an introvert, I'm an introvert. I need that recharge. I'm not a fan of the networking. However, how do you invite people in and allow your business to speak for itself could also help. All right, so let's think about these things as we go throughout the day. Okay, so how do we make sure that we are developing those skills? All right, so quick pieces of terminology. You probably have heard me say them in the last session. I'll probably allude to them here. But when we talk brand equity, so brand equity are the positives and the negatives. And when they come together, we want to make sure that our equity is positive. The other thing I want to point out is that neutral, where people say, I like this, but I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion about this business. You want to make sure that people have a resounding positive image about your business. You don't want people to be in between, because that's where we lose out on sales, when you're not top of mind and you're not immediately in that positive space. Brand associations. What connections do we want consumers to make when they think about our business, when they hear our name, when they walk by? What do we want them to think? What emotional connections? Loyalty. I've said it before and I'll say it again. 80% of your sales are going to come from a small percentage, about 20% of your customer base. So if you can build loyalty, through your branding, through your marketing strategies, then that makes your job a lot easier because you don't have to constantly bring in new customers, okay? You focus on keeping those loyal, and then you can use some of those other resources to build, okay? And then the last one is perceived value. This is an equation, okay? The relationship between what you offer and what they have to give up. Many times we think of it as simply price or simply money, but there are lots of things we give up. Time, we give up information, we give up opportunities to do other things. There might be people that drive across town to come and see you because the perceived value is very high, okay? So think about all those reasons why people come in. How do you make sure that they have a high perception of value and they want to keep coming back? Okay, so those are the terminology pieces. If you have any questions as we go, please let me know. So here I want to point out the characteristics that I believe all strong brands have. Okay, and I'm going to break down each one of these. Okay, keep in mind, you want to identify which are the ones that you are doing great at. What aspects of these, this brand equity piece, do you do well? Because you want to capitalize on that, okay? So you can take a picture of this, or I've already shared the slides, so those slides will be shared with you afterwards that will have this here. But thinking about evoking emotion and encouraging action. Do you encourage your customers to do something? Do they want to shop when they come in? Do they want to tell someone about you? Influencing decisions, recommendations. Many of you have talked about that. How do we provide those recommendations for people? How do we influence them to maybe try this author or that author? We deliver on our promise. What is the expectation of the customer and how well do we deliver on it? Sometimes we just don't know. And that's an area where we might need to spend more time understanding our customers. We've talked a lot about that as well in the previous sessions. Create advocates and promote sharing. You want people to want to talk about you, to tell people about you, to bring their friends in, okay? And you also want to stay relevant, okay? There are various ways that we can stay relevant, and I'll talk about those. Yeah. And then command loyalty. We want that loyalty piece, all right?
Oh wow.
Okay, so when we think about strong brands delivering on what they promise, there are several different things that we can use as examples. Okay. So a brand promise is what you're committing to the people that you interact with. It's not necessarily what you do. You do book selling, but what are you committing to people in that? Does anyone have a brand promise right now? What are you promising your customers beyond just what you do? So it's not just in the literal sense of what you do, but what brand promises do you all have? What are you promising customers, whether explicitly or not? So you either tell them, I'm giving you this, or you seek to deliver on that. I love it. Regular donations to active nonprofits. Absolutely. So you're making a promise that your business is supporting the community and driving sustainability and driving opportunities for other people who might not have access to what you're donating. Any others that have a promise that they're delivering on? Anybody else? All right, so I've got some examples here. So Coca-Cola, inspire moments of optimism and uplift. So if we think about it, what Coca-Cola does is they sell beverages, but their promise is to inspire moments of uplift and optimism. So creating smiles, giving people something that they can share and connect with, okay? So over a beverage. Geico, 15 minutes or less can save you 15% or more on car insurance. That is their promise, okay? So when we think about it, they have all these other gimmicks, all of these other characters that they create, but at the end of the day, they're promising that they're going to save us some money on car insurance. BMW, the ultimate driving machine, okay? I love that, Scott. You know half the authors you carry personally. That is huge. That's a promise that we can bring these real people into the space. We know them, we support them, and I like that exclusive editions. That is a wonderful brand promise. When we look at BMW, similar, right? The ultimate driving machine. BMW is a car. But when we think about a machine, we think of something powerful, high performance, something that delivers or creates something. So thinking of BMW creating joy when you're driving it with a high performance vehicle. And then lastly, H&M, more fashion choices that are good for people, the planet, and your wallet. So when we think about H&M, they're in the clothing retail space. There are lots of other people in that space. But how do they do it uniquely? They focus on the planet, the people, and cost-effective and cost-efficient products. All right. So your brand promise, think about what it is you are promising to your customers. Strong brands also create advocates and promote sharing. I can't say this enough. Make people want to tell others about you. Okay. So thinking about the ways that you're doing that. Are you asking people to like your social media pages, to follow, to share, to amplify those messages? Think about those low-hanging fruit ways that we can get people to promote sharing about us. Strong brands also stay relevant. So there are typically 4 ways that I think about brands staying relevant. The first one is activism. So Muhammad Ali, the last time he was in the ring was 1980 or sometime around there. However, the picture you see now is him in Salt Lake City in 2002, lighting the Olympic torch. Someone that hasn't done what they're famous for in over 20 years, but he stayed relevant because of his stance on the Vietnam War and his level of activism in the community and supporting different causes around the world. So you can stay relevant by advocating and being an ally for different things. Performance. We think of Apple. They stay relevant by just working, right? Their products work. All right. So whether you use a MacBook or you use an iPhone, they work seamlessly together. Okay. FedEx, diverse product offerings. So FedEx not only is a delivery service, but they also have FedEx Office. They make sure that you can get your business needs met. So when we think of FedEx, they're a great example of a company that stays relevant by offering multiple things. When you think about what you offer, how do you expand your product offerings so that it's not just books? What else are people seeking when they come to you? Okay. Google, they stay strong by innovation. All right. They continue to innovate and create products that are going to meet the needs. Now, think about if Google just offered email, they would actually be in the same place that AOL is right now, right? We know AOL still exists, but it's not at the top of conversation for people. Most people only deal with AOL if they have a really old email address, but Google didn't stay in just that email address space. They look for ways to innovate and grow into other areas. Okay, so strong brands stay relevant. They also command loyalty. All right. So we have what are called cult brands. Harley Davidson is a great example of a cult brand. People don't just buy Harley because it's a motorcycle. They buy Harley because it's an attitude. It's a feeling. Political parties are also examples of commanding strong brands that command loyalty. You typically follow the political party that shares your values. Think about ways that you can command loyalty through your offerings. Strong brands also influence your decisions. I know many of you talk about the recommendations and being able to provide some of those additional support services for your customers. Oprah Winfrey, we have this thing called the Oprah effect. She is able to when she had her show, she was able to single-handedly create strong brands, create millionaires, create new talk show hosts just by putting her stamp of approval on things. So Garrett's Popcorn became famous, Spanx became famous, all because they were listed on Oprah's list of favorite things. Okay. So when we think about strong brands, they influence our decisions. Okay. And then we get down to the last part and we think of strong brands evoking emotion. So I want to show you this example of Coke. And I know Coke has a lot more money and time and resources than most of us do. However, I do want to show you the simplicity of how you can evoke an emotion or encourage action. Giveaways. People love giveaways. And it could be something like people donate their old books, and then you have a donate pile where people can take one, things like that. So there are many ways that you can evoke positive emotions. So I'll show you this great example from Coke here. So notice the emotion. You have smiles, you have people interacting because they're forced to now. They're delighted, and then I'm pretty sure they'll start telling people about it through their social media channels. And this is also a great example of Coca-Cola's brand promise, moments of optimism and uplift, okay? So thinking about this, there are ways, what are some of the ways that you encourage action or encourage people to connect or evoke emotion amongst the people that come through your doors? Are there any things that you do from this emotional connection standpoint or encouraging them to do something beyond just purchasing? What are you all doing right now for this aspect? Oh, wonderful. Okay. And so I'm assuming, Scott, this is for people that are in the store, and you do it on a regular basis. So these are for your regulars. All right. Wonderful. So yes, those simple things that make people feel like they are a part of a community. You do donations for local charities. Oh, I love the local artist pop-ups. That's awesome too. Because then it allows people to connect. It shows that you're a part of the community. It evokes an emotion of support and being part of something bigger. Okay, I like it. Got to bring TikTok in. I like that. And it gets people to follow. And you can even put challenges out, getting people to encouraging people to take action in some way. So just really thinking of simple ways that we can drive emotion. Now, I know we sometimes think about this as, well, it doesn't really impact the bottom line directly or immediately, but the more people feel like they're a part of something and they feel this emotional connection, the more likely they are to continue coming through your doors. And then the more they come through your doors, the more likely it is that they're going to buy something and they're going to support you. So we look at branding, and branding is one of those things that people think like, oh, I don't really have time to spend on this because it's not driving. I need to go do things that are going to drive revenues. Okay. Oh, I like the hideout in the reading space for kids. Absolutely. That could encourage people to come. So there are places where when my kids were younger, I just would not take them. Okay. Maybe the store was too small, or I knew I was going to spend a long time there. So I knew they would be uncomfortable. So there were some places where I just said, you know what, if I have the kids, I'm not going there. But the more you can encourage people to bring their whole selves, their kids included, will really help them find that connection to you. So I really like the hideaway and something special for the kids while mom and dad and others get to shop. All right. So as a quick recap, these are the 6 characteristics of a strong brand. Okay. So now, keeping some of these things in mind, we're going to go through now building your brand story. So how do we make it happen? Okay. So I'm telling you to go off and you're like, okay, but how? How do I bring this brand story to life? Some of you are already doing it, and it's all about putting it into a cohesive format that you can share with others and that everyone in your organization can amplify for you. So really quickly, a brand story. Why do you need one? Okay. They create a narrative and it positions us as unique and creates an emotional connection with our customers. So good storytelling. Now, I don't have to tell you all as booksellers about the power of storytelling. Okay. So when we're talking about branding, that is literally all we're talking about. We're talking about the story. Okay. So what needs to be included in your story? Okay. We need to make sure we bring our personality. We have to bring our experiences, our purpose. Don't forget why you started this in the first place. Okay. What are your aspirations? Do you want to bring the gift of books and reading to every single person in the world within your power? What are you aspiring to? Okay. Because we know that we're typically in business because we want to make a profit, right? Businesses exist to make money, but we know the thing that drives us every day is more aligned with some of these aspirations and our purpose. And we have to remind ourselves and others why we're here, why we're doing this. Okay. So I want to go over the anatomy of a brand story, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time putting some of these elements together. Okay. So if you start at number one, your brand story should focus on your goals and your brand essence. Okay. You have to be realistic. Okay. How should you communicate your goals to the outside world? All right. So this slide will also be a part of those slides that will be available to you afterwards. Okay. So you want this to be realistic. What is it you're trying to achieve, and how do you focus on who you are as a company, as an organization? So it should be authentic. All right. How do you show your character and your personality in your actions, in the story that you're sharing and telling to everyone that walks through your door? Okay. Then we look at focusing on our customers and their feelings. Okay. So we want to be empathetic. Okay. Your customer is experiencing some pain point, or they're looking for something, so they come to you for that something. So understanding that, okay, connecting with them and showing them how they are a part of your brand story. Should be emotional, some emotional connection. Now, I don't always just mean emotional that you have to always hit people in the heart and make it to where tears come up. But when we say emotional, we're talking about all these emotions of happiness, joy, satisfaction, feeling like you found a family, right? You found a place. Okay. So thinking about how do we emotionally connect? And then we also, because we're talking about marketing and branding, we're also trying to persuade them. We're trying to convince them or show them why they need the solution we're providing, why they cannot just keep on doing what they've always done. Okay. And then lastly, focusing on showcasing a better future. So this is where that purpose comes back into play. How do we make sure that what we're offering is relevant to these customers? Okay. So anatomy of a brand story, just keeping some of these things in mind as we go through these brainstorming activities. But really quickly, I want to show you an example from Warby Parker Eyewear. Okay. So Warby Parker, they transformed the eyeglass industry. Okay. They made designer eyewear affordable and better for the environment and easy to try on at home. Okay. So this is a little bit of a mix of their processes, their products, all the things that they offer. Okay. Their brand also comes from a great story. I don't know if you've heard, but one of the founders actually had to go through an entire semester of grad school without glasses because they were unaffordable. Okay. So every idea starts with a problem, and Warby Parker's was simple. Glasses are just too expensive. So one of the founders lost them on a backpacking trip and couldn't replace them. And so they ended up squinting and complaining through the first semester of grad school. Okay. So their company was born out of a very personal problem. Okay. So that's great. They started a business. They found a way to make money based off of a problem. Okay. However, they also, when you buy a pair, they give a pair to someone in need. Okay. So your purchase comes with a way to help other people. Okay. So buy a pair, give a pair. All right. They've given over 10 million pairs of glasses. Okay. When we think about how it works, there are 2.5 billion people in the world that need glasses, and some don't have access to them. So now you start to see their brand story coming to life. It's not just about creating eyewear at an affordable price, but creating eyewear that's going to help other people learn, be able to go to school, be able to go to work, or whatever they need to do because they need eyewear. Okay, so this is a way that your entire existence can be built around your brand story. All right, so that's an example there. Couple of things to remember as we go into your brand story. You are not the only author. Okay, so don't forget PIE, performance, image, and exposure. Okay, that exposure piece is typically happening through other people. Your image is how other people perceive you, and your performance is what you largely control. Okay, so make sure you're doing that at a high level, and then making sure you're creating a positive image that people can go off and share. Okay. Your mission, I just pointed that out with Warby Parker. Your voice and your mission matters. Why you do this day in and day out. Okay, so let's take a moment. In 6 words, I want you to tell your brand story. Okay. So what do you want people to know about you? How do you want them to perceive you? What do you want them to say about you? And what can people expect from you? Now, you might say, you just told me this very elaborate storytelling process that Warby Parker does, and they have an entire website, and you want me to do this in 6 words. I absolutely do. And look at Jennifer's already there. We're here to lift our community. I love it. So I'll show you a couple of examples while you think through your 6-word brand story. Okay. Good stories always beat good spreadsheets. Chris Sacca is a startup advisor and investor, right? Spreadsheets are wonderful because they show us that we can be successful or that we are successful in our business. They show the numbers. However, he likes good stories. What is your purpose? What is your why? Tiffany Schlain, jump from cliffs, wear a helmet and lipstick. Jumping from cliffs, do risky things, but be safe while doing it. So calculated risk, wear a helmet, and lipstick, look good while you're doing it. So she is a filmmaker. All right. Couple of others, share your story, change the world. George Takei is an LGBTQ activist, and he also has shared a lot of his story about being in a Japanese internment camp during World War II. All right. So those are a couple of examples, and then I will give you a moment. So let's hear some of your 6-word brand stories. Okay. Jennifer has already kicked us off. We're here to lift our community. So I'll be watching the chat. I like that. Escape and inspiration to impact change. I am one of those readers that look at that as an escape. I love to jump into the stories and hear. So that's bringing in that customer focus and want, as well as you figuring out how you can impact. Very good. Very good. I love them. Everyone needs science. Science needs everyone. Very cool. Connecting stories that change the world, building a world of avid readers. I love it. All right, keep them coming. Work on your brand story. Now, the beautiful thing is we don't have to synthesize our story down to just 6 words, but I always start with this 6 words because I encourage you to get to the point. What is it at its very core, at the base, that you are doing this? What are you doing? Why are you doing it at the core? What is it that you're doing? Leave your worries at the door. I love that. All right. So ultimately, we will use this 6-word story to really build out how do we carry it out? How do we implement that? So keep them coming as we keep moving forward in our brainstorm. Okay. So I like to do projection techniques or, getting you to think about your brand in a different way or a different light. All right. So we're going to go through a series, and the worksheets for this week will have all of these questions on it. But these are just some things to think about as you start to pull together this broader brand story. Okay. All right. If your brand was an animal, a beverage, a color, or food, what would it be? So, how do you embody your brand story in one of these four things? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. Okay. And if you can put a little explanation with it when you drop it in, that would be great. All right. So Beth, you're a cat. You have a store cat. Okay. Is that your inspiration? You want the life of the cat living in a bookstore? I love it. All right. Think about it. If your brand was one of these things, oh, I love it. Popcorn, salty or sweet, but always crunchy. I love that. Oh, the tree. Very good. Very good. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. I'll get a couple more, then I'll explain why this exercise is powerful and important. All good, Beth. No worries. No worries. Oh, hot cocoa, comforting, delightful, and always a good idea. Absolutely. The dragon. Definitely want to hear more about the dragon. Teal and purple. Megan, is there a reason for the teal and purple? What do they embody for you? A potluck dinner with friends. I love that. Keep them coming. The key with this is it allows you in a very simplistic form to find those characteristics, those attributes that you most want associated with your brand. Okay. So I think as we go about this branding exercise, it's easy for us to really think in the long form of, oh, we want our brand to be innovative and we want it to be these things. But then it's kind of abstract because innovative has lots of different vectors. So as you sift it down to something very specific, like an animal, a beverage, a color, or a food, that allows you to put those characteristics on it so you know exactly what you're striving for. Blue, Storybook Cove, calm, life-giving journey. I love it. All right. So thinking through these things, what are your 3 favorite brands? So go ahead and jot down the 3 brands that you like best. And if you can't think of 3, 1 is fine. So think of your favorite brand. Oh, gumbo. I like gumbo. Spicy, lots of different flavors. A little bit something different in every spoonful. All right. So think about your favorite brand. Okay. Thank you, Scott. All right. So once you've thought about your favorite brands, it can be 3 brands or 1, that's okay. What do you admire most about this brand? Okay. Think about what you admire most. Think about what you admire most. And then based on that, imagine this brand took over your company's brand development. What would they advise you to do, to change, to update, or to amplify? So think about some of the changes that your favorite brand would recommend you make. And I'd like you to share that in the chat. So give me your brand and what you think or what you admire most, and then what you think they would encourage you to change. And I've got some examples here. So Red Bull might encourage you to be bold because they bring that to life. Apple might encourage you to find innovative yet efficient ways to deliver on what you do. Google might encourage you to develop your skills to serve as a go-to expert. Okay, so when you think about it, tell me what change your favorite brand might recommend for your store. All right. How would your favorite brand encourage you to change or grow or get better? Okay, style and design, okay, from Apple. All right. So what we're doing in this exercise is we're finding those things that make that brand really strong, really powerful, and allowing them to say, you need to do this better, or you need to do this more often. Okay. Ways that we can improve. All right. And I know we're getting close to the time, but like I said, these exercises and thought questions are in the worksheets. But I do want to make sure we get to the close of how you're going to bring these brand elements to life. All right. So once you go through the exercise of what animal am I embodying, thinking about the anatomy, the 6 parts, the anatomy of your brand story, thinking about your brand identity or your brand story in 6 words. How will you bring this to life? And I always try to connect this because these 3 sessions that I've done are all related. They're all connected. You're going to bring them to life through your marketing mix. Okay. So if we think about our product, how will we bring our brand story to life in the products we offer? I think someone said in here, serve a very specific niche market and find a niche within that niche. So your products are going to reflect those niche markets, maybe those hard to find things. Your price, we talked about price strategy last time. So you can go and watch that recording to get more ideas on price strategy. I know we can't impact price as much, but the strategy of it. Place, how do we deliver? Okay, so when you think of some of your brand identities that you put in the chat, how do we deliver? So I'm looking at popcorn, salty or sweet, but we're always crunchy. How do you deliver on that? The place. Promotion, how do you tell people about it? The people, how do you ensure that everyone that works in your store or interacts with your store knows that this is the brand story and that you're trying to bring those things to life? Your processes, making sure that we are able to bring these things through with our solid processes. And then physical evidence. If we want to create a calming space where people can come escape, we've got to create our physical space to embody that. Okay. I like that. Strong voice, but not afraid to mix it up. Absolutely. Stand by it. Okay. So you can't disconnect from what we did in the previous sessions. I'm always going to bring it forward. So this marketing mix is going to be the way that you bring this brand story to life, making sure you're infusing that story through all of these 7 parts. Okay. So as we close, I want to show you the worksheets that you're going to get. And as I mentioned, the branding identity brainstorm, all of those questions are here. Okay. So you can take some more time, maybe give it to your team and see what different animals or beverages or food or colors might be showing up so that you can, because the more, you want to make sure your brand story is cohesive and consistent, but there are various ways that the different people on your team can bring it to life. And so we think of those as being able to reach different groups of consumers. Okay. So think about that brand identity brainstorm, and then your brand story. This is helping you pull together those pieces of the overall story. Okay. Based on your inputs from the brainstorm and things that you've previously identified from the other sessions. Okay. So the link to the handouts is in the chat right now. And I'm going to stop there. I know we're right at the time, so I'm able to stay if anyone else would like to stay and have specific questions on this. But the slides and the recording are available, so I'll be here another few more minutes if you need me. And then before you go, if you can put your just one word in the chat, I think that will be great. And so it's been a pleasure being with you all these 3 sessions. I will be setting up individual consulting appointments. So if anyone has questions on any of these things or other things that may be related that we might not have covered, that link will be forthcoming for you all. And so I look forward to just continuing to connect with you and see where your stores go. All right. So look for that information and I'll be here if you have questions.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA website at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!